What is happening, people? And welcome back to the Scarfe Spurs Talk podcast. Today, I'm joined by a fantastic panel as we discuss pre-season. We talk transfers. So let's run you through our panel. Firstly, Casey, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you very much for asking, and thank you very much for joining this evening. It's great to have you on the show. So I hope you enjoy it. And Travis, regular on the show, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, mate. Good to be back on the show. So I know I missed last week's one, but yeah, always good to be back on your show. It's always something to very much look forward to by the end of a working day.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming on. Justin, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. As I say, it's been a little while, so it'd be good to get back into it. I'm looking forward to it. So thanks for having us on.
No, thank you very much for coming on. It has been a while. Lois, I can't say the same to you. So we've done quite a few shows in the last few days. How you been?
No, I'm good. Thank you for having me on again. It's a pleasure.
No, thank you very much. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It's free to do so and it helps the channel and the podcast grow. If you're listening on a podcast platform, don't forget to give us a follow and a 5-star review. That will be massively appreciated. Apologies if you're hearing any background audio. We'll try and get that sorted as soon as possible, but we will crack straight into it. And before we get into pre-season, I want to talk transfers. So firstly, I want to talk about a player that we signed in Min-hyuk, who will join Spurs in January 2025. So to kick it off, I'm going to come to you first, Casey. What can he bring to Spurs, the 18-year-old? He obviously joins in January. He's a winger. Do you know that much about him, what you've seen?
To be frank, I wouldn't say I'm an enjoyer of the J League. Is that where he's from, right? Or the K League? I can't remember which league he's from. But from obviously the only thing I can gather is off the highlights. In a way, he kind of reminded me of Hill when we first brought him in, a player who loves to take his man on. I think a lot of people when we brought him in have questioned his physicality, which obviously a player like Hill we thought at the time was a fantastic signing, but couldn't quite physically adapt to the Premier League. But I do really hope that he does have that physical adaptness to the Premier League. But I do think he will have an easier transition into Premier League football, just because he has the greatest ever Korean player easing him into this team, our captain. And yeah, it's an exciting signing. It's looking like we're trying to broaden our way out across the world, not just Europe. And look, it's a low risk transfer. If he doesn't work, he doesn't work. But if he does, he's looking like a fantastic player.
Absolutely. I think that's a really balanced and good way looking at it. Travis, I'll bring you in on this. What do you know about Yang, and what do you think that he can bring to Tottenham? You know that he's a young winger and he joins in January. Do you think it's one for the future, or can he have an impact in January?
Yeah, I think Casey's hit the nail on the head, really. I mean, I don't know too much about Hang, or was his Hwang, but I don't think there's a lot of intent there in regards to the actual transfer, but he's a youngster for the future. I mean, I know we've got that other guy that's gone out on loan as well, the Vlasic, or what his name is. So yeah, I can't really say too much. Obviously, he starts playing regular football at Spurs. That's all I can really say on that, really, Harry, to be fair.
No, okay, that's fine. Fair enough. That's better than nothing. Obviously, I'm not going to lie. I hadn't heard of him when we signed him. It's when you hear links with him, really strong links, and then you go and do your research. You learn, 18 years old, the K League, etc. Justin, do you know any more than I do about Yang and what exactly you think he can bring to Tottenham? Is it going to be instant? Is it going to be over time? Sorry, Justin, I muted you.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, to be fair, I think Casey summed it up pretty well. I mean, I think we were all sort of quite limited on it. I must admit, I was a little bit surprised it's taken this long, because obviously we know that Ange has spent a lot of time out in Asia, in terms with Japan and out there in Australia and that sort of area. So you would have thought that maybe we would have seen more players like this coming to Tottenham. It's going to be a very interesting one, to be fair. I mean, I've heard the fees anywhere between 4 million euros to 7 million euros. So it's one of those things that we just we've waited a long time for. It's surprised it's taken this long, but we'll have to hope it does work out. Obviously, as Casey said, he's got Sonny there to help and support him. I mean, I've seen a few highlight reels, but I think, I've seen, anyone can make up a highlight reel, but he did score quite a good goal just as the deal was being announced. So, yeah, it will be interesting. I think obviously, the Bryan Gil comparisons will be there, but we just have to wait and see. This is something that Tottenham needs to get better at doing. We need to get better at being able to unearth talent, not just from standard places, but also a case of, from these leagues, because, not a lot of people do. So if we can get a heads up and bring some of these players through, and I can imagine there would have been a recommendation from Sonny as well in terms of this. So let's hope it is a success, but a bit like Bergvall, we won't know too much more until he turns up.
Yeah, that's the thing. We won't know too much, but I understand the Gil links, and there will be some. I think off the pitch and on the pitch, I think it makes sense in terms of keeping the South Korean fans here after Son. Obviously, they do invest a lot around the club merchandise, etc., and a lot of tickets they pay on the day. I think that's a reality. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. In fact, I think it's a good thing, but I think that is a reality. I think also on the pitch, it could be a player in there for future. And I like what I've seen in pre-season and in 2024. His statistics are good. It's whether he can do that at a higher level. Lovis, what do you think about Hwang and the signing? Is it a case of another one for the future, or can he have an impact when he comes in the second half of the season?
No, I think it's just a future signing. I don't think you might see him for another good few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, to be completely honest. That's just what I think. I mean, obviously, you have to agree with me there. But I think it's just a Daniel Levy future signing. I mean, I think we've done too many future signings recently, and we need to get a player that will walk into our starting 11, which is the main problem I have with the window so far. I mean, I'm pretty sure he'll be playing on Wednesday when we play the K-League All-Stars, so you might see a bit of him there, see what he can do against Premier League opposition, being ourselves. But I think he's a good player. I think he's just going to be he's got to go under Son's wing a bit and just learn off him and see if we can bring him to the levels of Heung-min Son. But there's very few could probably do that. But I'm sure, looking at some highlights and some stats he's got in the K-League, he looks like a really good player. But I think it's just translating the K-League over to the Premier League, which is probably quite a hard ask.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's a big step up. We can see whether he can do it or not. Next, I want to move on to Ryan Sessegnon, who since our last podcast has returned to Fulham, signed as a free agent. So, Casey, I'll start with you to kick it off. What do you make, firstly, of his time at Spurs? Why didn't it work out as it should have?
I mean, quite frankly, he's a man that I wish it worked. I think we have this image of him right now, but we forgot the talent that we brought in. I think at the age of 17, he won Young Player of the Year and Player of the Year at the Championship, which is ridiculous. And as a left wing back, I believe as well, which, again, is ridiculous. He did have some good moments. I do especially remember the start of the Conte era. He really seemed to be a bit rejuvenated. But at the end of the day, he's just been injury prone. And that's something that we can't help, because I believe if he had stayed fit for his time for us, I do believe that he could have become a bit more involved in the squad, a rotation option possibly, especially the way the football playing at the moment. I think definitely could have suited him a lot. But he's only 23, and he's a player that I did really like, and I'd much rather him go off somewhere and just rejuvenate his career a little bit. It didn't work out. It is what it is. But he's a player that will hold a bit special in my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate that. Lois, I'll come back to you, actually. Ryan Sessegnon, where do you stand? Again, similar question to you. Why didn't it work out at Spurs? Some people go, he was unlucky through injuries, and I do think that's the case, that we've got a few different managers in his time, maybe not playing in the right position. What do you put it down to? Was it a combination of all of those things?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of what you just said. I don't think injuries definitely didn't help. Injuries never help anyone, obviously, speaking very obviously. But as well, I think it's people, maybe managers like Conte as well. I don't think he helped the situation either, kind of like the positions he was in. I don't think, I think people like Conte as well don't really have they don't really help the youth, if you get what I mean. They're more prefer to play experience over trust in the youth. And at the time, obviously, when we had Conte, it was about 2021. So I doubt that managers like Conte were giving him the time and the help that he probably needed. A manager like Andrew probably suited him more, and probably would have got more game time under Andrew if he wasn't riddled with injuries at the time. But yeah, I think it's just injuries, the systems we played when he was here, which didn't help him at all, and it was a bit of a poor signing from us. Really, I like the player, of course, but it just didn't work out. It was another poor signing in the end. because he paid about 20+ million for him and it just never worked out.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. Justin, I'll come to you next about Ryan Sessegnon. What did you make of the signing at the time, and then now looking back and go, what went wrong? Because it's easy to say now, but what did go wrong?
Well, I think, to be fair, we've got to look at there were so many factors that were going on around that signing. Pochettino wasn't happy. He wasn't getting backed as he wanted. These players were being brought in late. I think him and Lo Celso, I think he wanted more. I think I remember him talking about a painful rebuild. And then after that, I think he just got completely messed about. Obviously, if you think he'd gone through Pochettino, he'd gone through Mourinho, he'd gone through Ryan Mason, he'd gone through, Nuno Espirito Santo, he'd gone through Antonio Conte, so on and so on and so forth. That he wasn't nobody really was able to, and I totally agree. I can't remember who said it about that. Ange would have been the perfect manager for him to have had at that time. And I think ultimately the problem that Ange had was he didn't have him for an entire season, and you just got to look at it from a club's perspective. That they've tried everything to keep him fit. In terms of these most recent surgeries, he couldn't stay fit, and then I think he did an under-21 game and he got injured, and nobody was going to take him while he was still under contract. You can totally understand why. And I get it, why Fulham he chose and why Fulham chose him, because I think that was actually a perfect fit. If you could chose somewhere for him to go, that would have been it. They'll give him time, they'll give him the love and things like that. Unfortunately, he will be seen as like another Darren Anderton, great player, but just too injury prone, and will have never have got the support for it. Whereas I think with Fulham, they will give him that time to get him back, give him that love. And maybe we will see that player once again. So good luck to him. But unfortunately, injuries and the club's turmoil just did him no favours whatsoever.
Injuries are a real pain in the backside, and I really think without injuries in football, if we could live in that amazing world, some of the players that we could have and the potential that could have reached. I think a lot of Spurs fans will think about Ledley King when they think about not getting injured and just how good that would have been. But in the YouTube chat, Barney is a Fulham fan, so it's very interesting to get his perspective. He says, I definitely feel a fresh start under a new system and a different manager. And Michael Silva has noticed he can keep players' careers going, and that he does have a reputation with that, with players that their careers aren't really going anywhere. I look at Willian, for example, or Iwobi, where their careers petering out, and he brings them back in and really effective against top 6 teams as well, and really having an impact. So I think he does have a good reputation when it comes to that. Travis, talk to me about Ryan Sessegnon. Was it the right thing to obviously let him go on a free, to let see his contract out, and what went wrong with Spurs?
Yeah, I think he was just very unlucky, to be honest with you, Harry. I was delighted to see him go back to Fulham. Obviously, that was his boyhood club. He's still young, and I honestly think he's got a lot to give. As I say, I just think he's very unlucky at Spurs with his injuries, and obviously he's been through different managers. But I think we could have got at least another season out of him, see how he thrived under Ange, because I thought he would have learnt a lot off of even Perisic when we had him defence-wise. I obviously thought he was going to be quite a good leading ambassador for the defending role, so to speak. But yeah, he's just been very unlucky. He's still young, and I honestly hope he thrives back at Fulham again. He did show a couple of good spells when he was at Spurs. I don't think he's a bad player. I just think he's just been very unlucky. It's good to see that he's going to stay in the Premier League, where I think he will fulfil his potential anyway. And yeah, good luck to him. I've always liked him. I liked him when he came to Spurs. He's just another one that's been very unlucky. And as you say, Ledley King, he was injury prone with his knee. One of the best defenders that Tottenham Hotspur have ever had, in my opinion, really. So yeah, good luck to him. But he could have been a good rotational player. I think you need to look at many other different players before replacing the likes of Ryan Sessegnon, no matter how unlucky he's been. There's a couple of players that need taking out straight away, Emerson Royale being one of them. But yeah, I wish him all the best. I really, really do.
No, I think that's nicely put. Yeah, we do wish him all the best at Fulham. I hope it does work out for him. I don't think he walks in straight away. I think it's competition for Robertson at left back. More importantly, competition in that kind of left wing slot, that Alex Iwobi, Harry Wilson kind of slot. I think that he's a good option to have off the bench, and I think that he's still got it. It's if he can be kept fit and in the right system, as a lot of people have said in the comments. Justin, I will come to you because our next news story I want to get to is, which happened last week again before the last podcast, that is Spurs Women's head coach Robert Villeman has signed a new contract with Spurs Women until 2027. So I want to ask you your thoughts on his first season last season, because he came in and I think done a lot better than people thought he would do. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at what Tottenham had to deal with, I think they'd had Rhiannon Skinner, and then I can't remember when she was sacked, who they brought in, and they just about scraped staying in the league. And they brought in Beth England to try and help to score goals. Robert Villa. You could see that he was part of what Tottenham what are now trying to do, bring the belief back into not just the men's game, but the women's game, sign some decent players, got to the FA Cup final, and obviously as well, had a decent run in the league. I think obviously the women's side is very similar to the actual the men's side now. I mean, obviously they've got him to sign this new contract. I think obviously now it's going to be a case of what do they want to achieve? We're looking at Man United, that is a total shambles in terms of how they're going backwards, how Sir Jim Radcliffe is completely showing total ignorance of the women's game. We're seeing obviously with Chelsea, Emma Hayes has left to go to the USA, so that will be something new. Obviously Arsenal have just lost Miedemar to Man City, so I do feel it is an opportunity. And one of the things, if you're looking at how you can, particularly with where the benefits come into it, the transfer fees, are a lot lower for the women's game than the men's. I'm surprised they haven't tried to do a deal yet to bring Grace Clinton back from Man United.
Yes.
That's one that is surprising to me. Whether that is something they're still looking at, I don't know. I do feel they need to make some. So it's ironically in terms of, as I said, the comparable with the men's side, that there's an opportunity, to really step up and take it forward. And I do hope, particularly with the growth we're seeing, we're seeing Arsenal playing their games at the Emirates. I think Aston Villa are doing it with Villa Park. We're starting to see more and more clubs do this. So it is a real opportunity, for Tottenham. If they've given this guy this contract, you would like to think they're going to back him. I know they brought in about 2 or 3 players, but I just feel that there is an opportunity to go and get Clinton back, or go and bring one or two sort of stellar names in to take the club to that next level. Because at the moment, I think the only one they could probably overtake is Man United. But then you've got Liverpool that are pushing on, and are they going to get sort of stuck in a little bit of a rut? So they had a good season. Villeman was a lot of credit to it. So I think rightly got that extended contract. But unless you back him and give him the players that he needs to take it forward, how long is his success going to last? That's the only thing that worries me.
Yeah, it's a realistic thing. Yeah, I do completely agree with you, Justin. I think that you're spot on. I think that, we've done well. Like we beat Arsenal, for example, this year. It just wouldn't have been possible. You go back even just a year or so. So, no, I think you summed that up perfectly. Casey, I'll come to you. What do you think the future looks like for Spurs Women? Now with Robert Villeman committed for longer, how far can they go this season? What's realistic?
I mean, I think he, in a way, is just like he's comparable to Ange. I think the comparison to the men's team is just right. It is spot on. I think last season, if you kind of like just took it from the base level, look at our women's team and our men's team, we both just kind of built the foundations to a future. I mean, obviously the women's team did absolutely incredible. Got to an FA Cup final and just kind of drew short by just a simply better team, really, on paper. But I think there's a lot of hope. I mean, as someone I'm not going to lie to you, past 3 years, I hadn't had as much interest. But since his arrival, he's brought a lot of hope, I think, into this team. You know, like previously mentioned, we almost went down. And then, you know, the season after, you get to, you know, an FA Cup final and, you know, potential there to get some silverware. And I think it's just the base foundations of just building up on that. I think, again, you can easily compare it to our men's team. Let's not strive for that. It'll be ridiculous to strive for the league. Let's just slowly build our way up. I think as Tottenham in general, we have this always this expectation we need to go for the biggest and best thing. Why can't we just be a bit like a Villa, just slowly build ourselves up and then compete? Which I think is fine. And I think the new renewal of his contract is a brilliant thing that Tottenham done, and it makes me happy because I do really see the future of the Tottenham team looking like how Arsenal have really took them under the wing. You know, obviously games are starting being played at Tottenham Stadium, and with his success, there's going to become more fans, and I think it's great. I think it's a great thing that we've done, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Thank you very much, Casey, for that. That's great. Lois, I'll come to you next, actually, because the next I want to move on to is Bryan Gil. We got the news today that was announced by both Spurs and Girona that's been gone through, and that he joins them on loan for the whole of next season. So, yeah, do you think it's a good deal for all parties? But also looking back, was it a bad deal when we signed him, considering we paid 25 million, we gave Lamela away as part of the deal, and we're only potentially getting back a reported 15 million euros, and that's only if Girona want to buy him. We probably might not get anything. So what do you think of the deal in general?
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, really, isn't it? I mean, I don't think 25 million and plus Lamela I think we've been robbed by. I think it's an absolute daylight robbery, and I think he's a good player in there for sure. I'm sure he's a good player. I think technically on the ball he's gifted, that's for sure. I think just when it comes down to the Premier League and the physicality of the league, he couldn't compete really. It's a real shame considering we gave away Lamela as well, which I kind of forgot about that. And I think I would have just kept Lamela, to be honest. But it's a shame. But I think now this deal, you could say it's good for all parties. It's a little frustrating that at the end of the loan we might not get anything, and we could be back at Spurs next season anyway, like nothing's ever happened. And then I'm sure at that point his transfer value goes down even more. So I mean, I think we've never had a good deal out of him, and it's not a good deal for Spurs, but for his career and for Girona, it is a good deal for them.
I think it's a good deal for them, but from the Spurs point of view, I mean, what are we doing with the Ndombele? We break our transfer record, and then we get literally pennies back for him, and then Bryan Gil, you do that, send Lamela the other way. Who I mean, what was he valued at? At the time, 25 million. So that makes Bryan Gil meant to be a 50 million player, and we're struggling to get. I think now, if we try to sell him, I think we struggle to get 5 million. So only Spurs can devalue a player, I think, by that much. So that's not good when you look at it like that. I mean, if you look at good business has done, we've wasted lots of money. I think recruitment still has a lot to answer for. Travis, I'll come to you next. What do you make of what you've seen in the Spurs shirt of Bryan Gil, and your thoughts on the confirmed news that he has joined Girona on a season-long loan?
Yeah, I think with Bryan Gil, I mean, when he first come to Spurs, he was quoted as the next Lionel Messi. Now, I was yet to see that, and I'm sure a lot of other Tottenham fans were as well, because I didn't rate him at all. He's very lightweight. Yes, he was skillful, but he really wasn't. I don't really think he was in the right league, to be honest with you. I'd rather have kept Eric Lamela. I loved Eric Lamela in the North London derbies and the Chelsea games. Absolutely perfect player for them sort of games. But I don't see I think, my personal opinion, I think Bryan Gil just needs to be let gone of. Let him go and do his thing in Girona full time and let it be that, because I don't see the point with him going on loan and then coming back to Tottenham next season or whenever it is, because I just don't think with our transfer window so far, it's not been great, but it's been better than what it has been for quite some time. I think there's going to be a lot of competition in there midfield wise for him to come back and walk into the Tottenham team. I just don't rate him. I mean, as Lois quite rightly said, absolutely robbed. in my opinion. 25 million for someone who's absolutely snowflaked his way through the team, hasn't really done a lot, and now we're sending him out the other way. It's just another pointless, in my opinion, again, another pointless transfer from Daniel Levy. And we've had so many of them. And I generally feel sorry for these players that get bought to Tottenham, want to play for Tottenham, and the next thing you know, they're out the door. So I think you just need to let these players go. They've had their time to shine. What's Bryan Gil at Spurs at now? What, 3-4 seasons at max, maybe? I think he's had his time. He's had his pre-season to kind of shine and show obviously what he's made of. But I think these are the sort of players you just need to get rid of and just move on.
No, thank you, Travis. What's your little saying, your little catchphrase that Daniel Levy has his pants pulled down? Is it one of them, do you think?
Daniel Levy has definitely had his pants pulled down in that one, yeah. So I did actually have a hashtag before I started the call tonight, Nick out. So there we go.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say it, and you didn't say it, so I thought I'll remind you. So you like to mention that and Eric Dyer every show, if people don't know by now. Yeah, no, I should have mentioned it. No, oh no, didn't think about that. Love it. Casey, I'll come to you next. Bryan Gil, what have you made of his time at Tottenham? I mean, I struggle to think of many times he played, really. I mean, it was a few minutes off the bench here now and then. But what do you make of what you did see, and also the deal as well in general, both when he was signed and now when he's leaving?
I mean, I'm going to be straight here. Top 3 least favourite players that's ever touched this football club in my lifetime. You don't even understand the amount of times where we are chasing the game and I see Ange Postecoglou or Conte bring on Bryan Gil, and I'm like, yeah, we ain't winning this. Like, Mr. Back, he summed it up perfectly. We brought in a guy for about 50 million with Lamela and the transfer that we paid for him. He scored 13 goals or something like that in his career ever, and 4 of them, or actually I think most of them, came from the 3rd division of Spain. Like Travis said, we got our pants pulled down hard. He was so exciting. I mean, looking at the clips, like I mentioned earlier, I was like, wow, this looks like a decent player. But what was so frustrating about him is just his refusal, just adapting. That's what made me dislike him as a player so much. Like, he didn't want to fight to be into this Tottenham team, not once. He has the ability. It's so obvious. There's so many times where, for example, the Frankfurt game, he won as a pen. The Crystal Palace game, I thought he was brilliant in that. There was always potential there. I think in a way he's probably one of the most technically gifted players I think we've seen come to Tottenham. But he just refused to gain that weight. He refused to get bigger and adapt to the league, and that's what made him so frustrating. Because we traded off probably one of the biggest fan favorites of this club ever with Lamela. Didn't get you the goals or assists, but he got you the shithousery, quite frank. And that won us a lot of games. Obviously the Arsenal game and I believe the United game when he won us a pen. The Rabona goals. There's so much Lamela brought, even though he didn't bring the goals and the assists, where Hill has just done nothing. And like Travis said, I don't understand us loaning him. I mean, I think we only loaned him just because we can't get him out the door, like you mentioned. But yeah, he's easily probably one of the least 3 favourite players that's ever come to this club. And I just think we just need to get him out the door regardless. I think whatever happens about him this loan, I just don't see him a future at Tottenham.
No, I think a lot of people will be in agreement with you. We'll move on, though, to pre-season. And Justin, I want to start with you. Yeah, let's start with you, actually. Yeah, we will. We're going to start with Vissel Kobe, our last game. Who impressed you in that game? Because bearing in mind, for people who don't know listening, they're 24 games into their league season, and we won the game 3-2. So who impressed you? Names like Moore, Donnelly, and Gray come to me instantly, Justin. Is there anyone else that you thought, or them, that you thought really stood out in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the names you sort of mentioned there, I thought were, pretty sort of special in terms of what we saw and what we've seen so far. It's not a case of a one-trick pony and we've been like, oh my gosh, we weren't expecting this. We've sort of looked at it and actually we've seen, consistently through pre-season these players do well. I think it's nice, obviously, that Donnelly is doing well, particularly at this left back role. Again, it will be interesting to see if the club use that as an opportunity for him in the same way as we've seen Spence on the right. I think he certainly needs to shout out, because normally what happens when you fall out of favour at the club, it goes one way. And I think credit has to be given there to a player who has knuckled down, realised what is in front of him and what he can do. And I think the fans are behind him with that. So I do think, as you say, the players there, have done well. And obviously we've seen the odd cameo here or there. I wouldn't necessarily say a player has stood out. I think the collective, it reminds me, and obviously maybe I'm getting a bit carried away, but it was like when Man United had their youngsters and they all sort of, were tight knit, and you could see they were building and things like that. Now, that's a lot of expectation to put on these players, but you can just see the fact that, there is something special there. And you really do just hope that this is something that they can take forward, because, we've seen it before, where we've had young players that have come in that have totally crumbled. Bryan Gil, I know that we've moved on from that, but was one that totally crumbled, just didn't, but we're seeing it. And I mean, even outside of that, we're seeing opportunities given. And I think that's the one thing I will give Ange credit for. I think there was a lot of frustration last year on why are we not using some of these players? But we're seeing, Lancashire getting games. We're seeing Devine getting games. We're seeing Ashley Phillips getting games. Now, to be fair, some of these players, will go out on loan or go back to the under-21s. But we need to get better at bringing these players through, even if they're not good enough for Tottenham. I mean, we're seeing, we're seeing these similar players go for 20, 30, 40 million pounds. Why are we not doing that? Why are we not getting onto that? If some of these players are not good enough, right, like possibly Dane Scarlett, if he's not good enough, why is he not being sold for 20 to 25 million pounds or things like that? This is where the club now, if it's not going to go big, then it needs to actually realise, needs to nurture what it has, build this unity, build this togetherness, so that these players can flourish. And if they're going to be a success for us, fantastic. But if they're not, then we can make some good money from it. It's what the other big clubs do. We need to start looking at that realistically.
No, I completely agree with you, actually, Justin. I think that we've got it wrong with young players. Whether we haven't cashed in when we should have, haven't loaned them when we should have. Look at Makunde as a prime example. He just had enough in the end. Or look at Dane Scarlett. He wasn't loaned when he should have been, and when he was, it just didn't work out for him. It was just negative everywhere he went. And what we do, Justin, was to leave it until they get 5-6 months left on their contract, and we'd take 4 or 5 million for him. That's the frustrating thing. And it's like with Højbjerg, when Postecoglou came in, unless Postecoglou explicitly said keep Højbjerg at the club, you sell him and we could have got, I think, close to double what we got for him now. And that is ultimately the difference, is those split decisions, those tough decisions in football where you see it. If you watch documentaries further down the league, even that is brutal. It's, you're not ready, you're not good enough to step up, we're selling you. It's got to be the best interest of the club. So I do agree with you on that, Justin. Lois, I'll come to you. I'm keen to know who has impressed you in that Vissel Kobe game.
Probably Archie Gray. I've said it probably quite a few times. I mean, he's playing out of position as well at centre back, which we all know. We didn't buy him to play at centre back, or at least I hope not. And we all know he's meant to play in that midfield. Like, he's meant to be a holding midfielder, which he's done throughout growing his career. I mean, I know last season for Leeds he played the majority of the games at right back, but that's not his natural position. But he filled in there and done brilliant. Now he's filling in at centre back and he's doing brilliant. Just showing you how versatile he is. I think he's been brilliant, especially against Vissel Kobe. I think another player that stood out to me was probably Kulusevski, which I didn't think I would say. And he played up front as well. He plays as a 9, which he hasn't not done before in his career as well. So it was interesting to see him play as a 9. And he set up that goal for Pedro Porro. Lovely, fantastic, well-worked goal. I think he was good. I think especially in the second half, Mikey Moore, another brilliant performance for him. It's good to see that these youngsters are doing really well. And a lot of people calling for Mikey Moore to start against Leicester, which I don't agree with. I do not agree with that. But I think he's a good player, and I think he's definitely got a place in our squad next season as a cover for that left side. I think and one final name I would say who's probably had a good pre-season as well is Jed Spence. Not particularly the Vissel Kobe game, but I'd say for the first 2 games in particular, he was probably one of our best players.
Exactly, and managers and pundits, etc., and fans are criticising him for his attitude and that. But in pre-season, he's shown the right attitude, mentality to go back, and as Justin says, break that vicious cycle at Spurs when you fall out of favour, is it all going downhill? And I think that he could break that. which looks really, really good on his case. So that's really positive. Travis, I'll come to you next. I want to talk about an in particular player, Mikey Moore. As his 6th goal contribution against Vissel Kobe in 4 pre-season games, including that Cambridge United friendly. How special do you think Mikey Moore is, Travis? And yeah, how soon will it be before we see him getting first team minutes?
Right, this is going to sound pretty brutal the way I word this, right? This is just how I feel about pre-season in general, right? Now these players have been absolutely brilliant since playing in the pre-seasons. Mikey Moore, all the other youngsters, Dorrington, Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall. But the problem we've got, right, is they can look absolutely superb in these pre-season matches. We play in the Premier League, the biggest league in the world, right? If they can't show that potential in the Premier League with the 25 season coming up, where do we go? And this is the problem with the transfers. Now, I know we've already spoken about it. I know we've moved on from transfers, but that is the bigger one end all. You know, Mikey Moore, yeah, brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic for the near future. But they're not players that are going to win a silverware. They're really not.
In the future, can Mikey Moore win a silverware in the future?
Yeah, he probably can. With the class that he's shown in these pre-season matches, of course he can. He's got the potential there. They all have. Archie Gray looks really good. Lucas Bergvall looks absolutely superb. But the biggest worry for me is the Premier League season that is coming up. If they can't show that potential in the Premier League, then we are going to be banging trouble. And that is my concern with the in and out transfers at the moment. I think we're one of the only clubs in the Premier League that bring in these young players and no one's heard of before. You know, and I just think, again, Andrew's just another manager who's got his hands tied because it's Daniel Levy's club. And I just don't know where we stand with the Premier League coming up. I am concerned.
Okay, no, fair enough. Interesting answer to how special you think Mikey Moore is, but no, really appreciate it nonetheless. Travis, Casey, I'll come to you now. I will talk to you again about Mikey Moore, but it's easy, isn't it, to get carried away about your own players, your own youngsters, your own potential future. How good do you think he is, though, based on what we've seen? Obviously, you haven't seen it against that level of opposition, but it does look exciting, doesn't it?
I mean, I'm just going to say it now. He might be the next Messi. Look, obviously I'm joking here. I am not the invert the wing himself, but he is probably like. There's a lot of players that's come up, and there's a lot of praise, obviously. And when I've watched him, I don't see it. I like Dane Scarlett. I don't see why people were hyping him so much. Mikey Moore, the bollocks on him is unbelievable. I mean, if we look at players, for example, obviously Cole Palmer coming into men's football ready for his first season, and he's got massive bollocks on him. And I think Mikey Moore is going to be a player that will go onto that. I mean, obviously, he's not going to do it this season. I think we're just going to slowly adapt him, but he seems like that type of player who will push on to do that. To be 16-year-old and have that confidence on you, it is pre-season, but I think we got to be hopeful. I'm probably the least negative football fan when it comes to my clubs. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, I think it'd be bad at that. Look, I think Mikey Moore is a fantastic player, and I'm very excited to see him. And in terms of preseason, I think a name that I'm very surprised has been brought up is Basuma. I mean, obviously we know he has the ability to fall off, but he's looking like himself again, and that's just nice to see. I still obviously think that we need to get that upgrade on him, but it is nice to see that we finally got the upgrade on. It's just nice to see him with a bit of confidence, because I think Basuma on his day is probably one of the most enjoyable players you can watch in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree that on his day, when he's 100% in an Angeball system, I think he's absolutely perfect. A little bit of news I forgot to break earlier, and that is David Pleat, who's been a scout at Tottenham since 2010 and been at the club actually for more than 2 decades, has decided to step down for his role. So as a channel, we wish him all the best. I do want to move on to, though, the K-League game on Wednesday. We play the K-League XI. So, how are we going to do this? Travis, I'll come to you first. What is your score prediction for the game? Come on, this is your time to be positive. Take back everything you said and go for a Spurs win.
I'm going 5-1 Tottenham. and Lucas Bergvall is going to get a hat-trick.
Is he? Right, okay. You weren't saying he's not good enough earlier, right? Okay, fair enough.
No,
5-1 Spurs.
He is good enough, but it's the
Okay.
Premier League that I worry about. But as we're talking pre-season, yes, it's the pre-season, bang as many goals as you want him.
Oh, Travis, continue being great. You never fail to surprise me. 5-1 Spurs from Travis. I love it. Lois, what would be your score prediction for this game on Wednesday?
Don't know. Probably, maybe I'll go 3-1 to Spurs. I think we'll probably have a more defensive assured performance, knowing that Dragason's going to be there. So I hope, obviously, that he gets some minutes. Hopefully, at least 45 in one half, because he's obviously met up with the squad now. I'm not sure when Van der Ven's supposed to be back in the squad. Word is that he will be in South Korea soon. So hopefully he gets minutes. But I think it'll be a defensively assured performance. Obviously, Ben Davies can cover left centre back as well. So I don't think we'll concede many. So I think I'll go 3-1.
No, I completely agree. 3-1 Spurs. Travis, would you like to explain your little shake of the head there? Was it the idea of Ben Davies staying at the club?
Ben Davies is finished. Finished.
Is he another Eric Dyer in your books?
No, he's not. He ain't that bad.
Oh, okay,
Ain't that bad.
all right.
Absolutely not. No.
Come on, he's been out of the club 10 years. What, you're not going to go to his testimonial? He's got a testimonial coming up, surely.
As long as Eric Dyer ain't there, I'm there.
We should have a whip round and get Travis a ticket, front row.
Yeah, front row. Eric Dyer's going to be there. Eric Dyer, Daniel Levy's going to be there. We're going to have the youth team that aren't good enough to step up for Travis. We can plan this quite nicely.
Get Nuno to manage the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can make this a special day to remember for Travis quite easily, I'm sure. Love it. Justin, what would be your score prediction?
Well, I think because obviously Dragashin is going to be coming back in early. It'll be his first sort of game. Obviously, it depends what sort of centre back pairing he's going to go with. We know that in the main matches it will be Romero and Van der Ven. So I'm probably going to go 3-2 to Spurs.
Okay, as long as we win, well, if we don't, it's pre-season at the end of the day. As long as we learn valuable things, Angela learns good things in pre-season, I suppose that's all that matters. But we're keeping up the run of Spurs wins. Can Casey go by his own words that he's the most positive Spurs fan? I'm expecting a big scoreline here, or at least a win. Casey, what's the score
I'm
going to be?
going to say 1-0 to the K-League. Unfortunately, I just don't see us beating them. I just think they've got too much for us.
It's all jokes
aside, it's quite hard to predict pre-season, but I'm going to stick with a 5-1. I mean, like I said, I don't know anything about the league, but I just think we're playing with a lot of confidence, and like previously mentioned by everyone here, I think a lot of the young players together, they seem to have confidence. We've got Dragusin back, which obviously is nice. We no longer have to see the weird Emerson Royale, Archie Gray, Oliver Skip, whatever variation of centre back. We can actually have a proper centre back, which would be nice to see. But yeah, I think it'll be a 5-1. Another Mikey Moore goal. I think Lancashire will get on the score sheet, and that should be an easy win.
Should be. Fingers crossed. Let's hope so. Those famous last words. But I certainly hope that is the case. One more game we do want to preview, though, is the Bayern game, because our next podcast falls after the Bayern game. Got on Spurs, 2 games in 1 week, hence the name of the title. So Bayern versus Tottenham. This will attract interest from outside fans from both these two clubs, even it just being pre-season. So Justin, to kick it off, who do you want to see get minutes in that lineup? I mean, it's quite a bit away. We've got a game before that. Is there anyone you want to go, right, Bayern, this is a better opposition. I want to see how they cope up against it. Like any youngsters or first team players?
I think I'd like to see Jet Spence, because I think we've seen him, do well in probably weaker conditions in terms of opposition. I think we now need to see that he can show that he can truly be, that competition with Porro on the right and possibly Donnelly on the left, because again, if we can show that those two can work, then technically could the fullbacks positions be taken care of? That would be not a bad show. I'd quite like to see Will Lancashire given some longer minutes, because we've seen what he can do. Again, tearing it up in the Premier League, the FPL 2. or Premier League 2, whatever they call it. You know, and obviously it'd be nice to see him against stronger opposition. I think I'm not too fussed about the likes of, you know, Mikey Moore or Bergvall or things like that, because we know that they're going to have longer stay within the you know, the first team. So maybe just some minutes for them. But to me personally, if you were asking me of 3 players that I think we'd like to really see, okay, are they going to be at Tottenham next season, or are we going to see him either sold or go out on loan? I think it would be Spence, Donnelly and Lancashire.
Okay, interesting combination. Thank you very much. Travis, a buying game. I mean, obviously, we know you want to see Eric Dyer, but from a Spurs point of view, who else do you want to see in the game?
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to see Will Lancashire, and obviously I'd like to see a lot more of Dane Scarlett as well. To be fair, I think he's got a lot of potential. I'd also like to see Mickey van der Ven absolutely clamp Eric Dyer and put him into Rose Ed. That'd be the best thing of that game. On an honest note, Lucas Bergville, he does look exciting. And again, I know it's a pre-season match, but I can honestly see Munich putting out quite a strong side. There is word about that Harry Kane won't be attending the match. How true that is, I don't know. But obviously, I'd love to see him back at Spurs. Obviously, wouldn't like to see him knock a couple of goals past us, but obviously, I would like to see him back at his boyhood club. But yeah, Archie Gray and Lucas Bergville. I think Lois said about Archie Gray playing in more of a CDM role. I'd like to see more of that. I think he's got a lot of potential. But yeah, him and Lucas Bergville, and if I'm going to go for a striker, probably a bit more Dane Scarlett.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Lois. I won't ask you because we have a match preview planned, me and you, before that, so we're focused on Bayern in that. Casey, who do you want to see in that lineup, in particular against Bayern? Because I mean, I want to see, of course, young players how they do up against Bayern, but there's also some players I think there will be. I don't know who it'll be. Kulusevski, how can they cope against a Bayern defence that done well last season? So, is anyone for you that stands out?
I mean, I think also we have to kind of look at who's going to be coming back. We haven't seen much of a Doggy. I believe he's in the training squad. I haven't been watching too much of the preseason games. I've been watching half or so I'm not too sure. I'd like to see him because obviously he got injured so long ago now. We want to kind of nurture him back into the team. You know, we've seen players like Benzema. Obviously, I know his injury isn't as severe, but, you know, it was a big injury. You know, he missed a whole entire Euro tournament that he could have been the make or break for Italy. Again, I think, obviously you mentioned, I think Spence, there's some brilliant points made here about Spence. Giving him that minutes, you know, giving him kind of that final opportunity to be, is he going to leave or is he not? I would obviously love to talk about Spence for a while here, but, you know, that's not the point of this little segment. Again, I think Lancashire as well. I mean, it's just like previously mentioned of the points. I just think let's give players that need those minutes, and then obviously the last Bayern game, which is at home. I think that's when we can kind of put out a stronger team, because we do need to get the team. We need to score back together, right? Quite frankly, obviously, need to see how Van der Ven and Romero are hanging up and stuff like that. So that's why I do think the next Bayern game is so crucial, especially for our onshore players or our younger players.
Absolutely, little things that increase in value in player, little small things like that, and yeah, just kind of seeing where we are, because, you know, it's all right to beat Cambridge United, Vissel Kobe without any disrespect. But beating Bayern, I think, is another thing, another task in itself. So it'd be a real test to see where we are. Casey, I'll stick with you because I want to go into predicted score for the Bayern game next. So, I mean, this is a lot harder. Obviously, we lack a game of evidence before that because of the way the fixture's laid out. So what do you think the score's going to be?
Well, I think Bayern are basically going to be doing the same thing, especially as they brought in a lot of players. They're probably going to look to maybe get that Xavi Simons in, maybe just before. Obviously, that's a bit of a 50-50 deal at the moment. So I'm going to say a 3-2. Either way, I know it's a bit of a silly answer, but I just it's a game that obviously, like you said, it's far away. But I do see there's going to be goals in it. I don't think it's going to be the greatest performance of both teams. I think it's going to be really down to individual performances.
No, I agree. And I think in pre-season, it is often down to individual performances and fitness. So, no, I'm in absolute full agreement with you on that. So, thank you very much. Travis, what's going to be your predicted score and who's getting on the score sheet?
I'm going 2-1 Tottenham. I'd like to see Romero get a goal. and Lucas Bergville. Just a quick one. I know we spoke about transfers earlier, but does anyone know the coup with Federico Chiesa and what's going on there at all?
From what I've understood, and I've sort of looked into a couple of bits to try and get a better understanding, there seems to be a lot of talk from Italy and the agent to try and orchestrate a move with regards to this. Whereas Tottenham have a target, as Ange has rightly said, he's got himself his targets that he wants. And from what I understand, they haven't changed. So whoever is on that list in terms of, for that position, that is who he still wants. Now, whether that be as a Neto, whoever it may be, obviously we know that those were players they were looking at. It's very difficult to say if they were the first choice. I do think Tottenham would, from what I understand, Tottenham will look at it, but I think it's more going to be a case of if they can't get their first choice. If we're getting closer towards the end of the window, Chiesa hasn't got the move, because I think he's trying to negotiate between us and Chelsea. I think there's representatives talking, but I don't think the club are pushing. And obviously the interesting thing is that Johan Lang is in South Korea. So it does seem a little odd that his representatives have gone to London when the guy you want to talk to is in South Korea. So I think, it's not a case that there's clearly smoke here and what have you, So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think he's Tottenham's first choice, but that doesn't mean to say that Tottenham won't look to go in for him if they just can't get a deal done for somebody else. Because obviously, I think they're talking about £25 million. They've done a lot to clear a lot of the wage bill, so they might be able to
really. I think that's a steal for Chiesa personally.
I mean, myself personally, I think it's a no-brainer to be bringing him in. But I think the difficulty that they are looking at, which is why, because I've heard a lot of people talk about his injury record, but I think that's contradicted by the fact that we're looking at Neto, whose injury record is just as bad. So to me, I just sort of look at it and I think, well, is it ultimately a case of that we're trying to, talk ourselves out of it? I don't know. I think the idea is, in a nutshell, is Tottenham have got other targets, but if they can't get them, then maybe they'll explore Chiesa.
Maybe. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's very handy. There you go. A little update for you. Lovis, score prediction for the Bayern game.
I think we'll win probably maybe like a 1-0, to be honest. I think if you look at Bayern's pre-season so far, I know they won like 13-1 against that team they always hammer every year. But they also just drew 1-1 to a team in like the third division, and they haven't put any of their first like strong names out in any of the pre-season yet. I'm assuming most of their good players are obviously on holiday from the Euros and Copa America, whatever. So maybe against us, you might see them a bit more. But I still think players like Harry Kane and stuff like that went to the final probably won't see them till when we play them at the Spurs round, because I think they're still technically on holiday. So I think we'll just about sneak it. I think it'll be a good game, but I just don't think you'll see from Bayern's perspective too many of their first names, because a lot of them may still be on holiday.
No, so in that way, well, it'd be better for us, I suppose, in a way if they were playing, because it'd be a real test of where we are. But because I think
you have to wait until the game at Spurs thing, because I think that'll probably be, but we'll definitely have people like Romero back as well. I don't think we'll see Romero on Saturday, because I think he's still on holiday, or he might just be
I don't think we will. I agree, and I think the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium game, we'll see players from both Spurs and Bayern coming back to improve the team, which is, I completely agree with you, Lois. I think that's fantastic, because it's a balance, isn't it, with pre-season? You want to uplift the fans ahead of a new season, but you don't want to mislead them into thinking, we're going to storm this. So, we're winning every single game very, very comfortably. So I think there's that balance as well with pre-season. Obviously, the idea behind it is to improve fitness and gel the team, introduce new signings, but also I think a lot of it is about fan expectation.
Is anyone going to that at all?
I don't know yet. I don't think so. I think I'm on holiday. Anyone else going to the Spurs and Bayern game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium?
I'm on holiday.
Nah, sadly not.
Are you going, Casey?
Yeah, I got tickets a while ago. I sold out £30, so I might as well. And also, to be there to see it, possibly a Kane, at the Tottenham Stadium, not being a top player, I think it'll be a bit interesting. And it's last pre-season friendly before the season starts, so I think it'll get everyone to an atmosphere. So it's a nice cheap day out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something you can't often say about this Spurs team under Daniel Levy, so that's quite a nice thing. I mean, it would be going as a season ticket holder, but it falls in that August time where a lot of people go on holiday, including myself. So, as far as I know, I'm not there. So yeah, Justin, to wrap us up, your Bayern score prediction and who you think is going to be on the score sheet.
Well, it'll be obviously quite interesting because it is Vincent Kompany. We saw how he tried to play with Burnley. Obviously, he'll have better players this time. But I think you'll see an attacking game. And again, I think both will still use it to, get people up to match fitness. So I can see it being 2-2.
2-2. Yeah, I was thinking 2-2. I was thinking 1-1 or 2-2. I couldn't make my mind up. So thank you very much. Actually, before we do wrap up, one thing I want to ask you is something that's circulated in the last 48 hours, and that is the idea of Premier League games potentially being played outside of the UK. And I'm very keen to obviously get others' thoughts. I know where I stand on it. So Travis, I'll start with you. I don't know how much you've heard, but there's been a lot going around about can they be played in America, etc. But surely it's not fair on the match-going fan, right?
Yeah, I think Daniel Levy will be licking his lips for that, to be honest with you. But I think it gives people more of an opportunity to go to new places. It also takes away the fact that teams will be playing on their own turf. So obviously there's a lot of competition with that. But yeah, I think it all kind of they don't think about what people can afford. There's people that are on a waiting list for a season ticket, let alone a ticket on holiday. So it's one of them. I think in a few ways it's a good idea, but also personally, I don't think it's very good for some people.
No, I don't think it is, but I don't think it's fair on the average fan, the average working fan that is working all week, and then will be punished and won't be able to see their club. No way they're going over to America because either they miss work the following week, and for many don't get paid, and then that's a knock-on effect, or they don't see the club they love. And one thing that has come out of it is abolishing the 3 p.m. blackout rule. I think that has to go. I think it's a myth that it would affect attendances anywhere in the Football League. Yes, in the past, but not anymore. That's one thing I will agree with. But you have to keep them in the UK. And it's funny, from people we're hearing about the ideas and the supporting being played outside the UK, there's a few conclusions for me. One, they don't understand football. And I think that's proved, or they don't follow it, they don't support the team. Number two, it doesn't affect them. It's one of those two things that I found with, whether it be Mark Goldbridge support it, who's not a match-going fan, whether it be someone who comes up with an idea, whether it be in government, etc., who doesn't follow football and doesn't know a lot about it. So,
Harry, I think the way you feel about Goldbridge is exactly the same way I feel about Eric Dyer. I think they're kind of on par with each other. After reading some of your tweets earlier, I thought, yeah.
No, I can't stand him. I see him as someone who makes money out of shouting at FIFA. And I don't believe for 1 minute that any of that's real. And I've got to be honest with you, as I was younger, I found a little bit of that entertaining. But if you're honest with you, I don't know why he's sitting there and questioning fans why they've got a problem with it, and it's him sitting at home. Is he really from Manchester? I mean, he doesn't support his local team. He's already revealed that. So I don't want to get into him or give him any extra airtime that he already gets an absolute handful of. Casey, I'll come to you next. Where do you stand with the idea of games potentially being played out of the UK? I mean, it sounds like a glamorous idea being played at iconic stadiums around the world, San Siro, the new camp. It sounds great, but it just doesn't work really, does it?
Well, I was having a discussion with my girlfriend. She's a Man City fan, and there's obviously, as being a Tottenham fan and being a Man City fan, we're very different levels at clubs at the moment. And I was saying, imagine there was a must-win game for Man City right at the end of the season, and they need that home atmosphere. They need the crowd to push them on, and they're going to America. They're going to America or something crazy like that, where the fans don't know the chance. They're just there for the money, and it hurts because, as the years gone past, we've just seen football just slip away from being the working class, the working man's sport. It's finding a way to get out of that. And you know, I was saying that to my girlfriend. I was like, and I was also saying at the same time, you know, Tottenham, if we reach that level, imagine how annoyed you'd be. Imagine it's our first title charge in however long, and we have a must-win decider game, and it's played in a completely different country where we don't have our home fans backing us. I mean, obviously, we did see recently in the South Korean game that the fans were brilliant there, but that's not guaranteed everywhere. You know, it's just a shame. And like you said, I can see why you're so passionate about it, because in the UK as it is, going to Tottenham is very expensive regardless, especially for someone like me. I don't live locally, so I'm spending a good bit of money going to the games anyway, yet alone spending a whole weekend in another country, flights and things like that. It's just ridiculous, and I don't see it going ahead. Just like the Super League, I can see everyone here should be equally as upset about it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, absolutely, but who's not being funny? Who's going to watch Bournemouth and Watford in America? That's the thing they don't think about. Okay, yeah, Man United, Liverpool, Tottenham. Yeah, you'll get fans like we saw in South Korea, that worldwide audience. But who's going to watch Bournemouth? They struggle to fill the stadium as it is. Who's going to watch Forest Green Rovers over in LA? It's just not going to have. It's a fantasy idea. It sounds great, doesn't it? You know, iconic stadiums and getting to travel the world. But the reality is, it's work the next day. And, you know, it doesn't come cheap either. And often you have to work to be able to afford it from so many people. And that just it won't happen. It's a fantasy, it's a myth, and it's a nonsensical idea for me. But Justin, where do you stand on that?
Look, they've talked about this for ages. This isn't going anywhere. It just won't happen because, you know, we see the hypocrisy of players talking about player welfare and talking about it being burnt out. And obviously FIFA have now brought in a new Club World Championships. You've got the AFCON, the Euros, the Copa America. I mean, where does it all sort of fit in with regards to that? So I think it is a fantasy. I think it is something that they definitely love the idea of. And that is where I think the irony and the hypocrisy comes, particularly of the clubs, talking about the fact that their players are being overworked and what have you. And yet, as we saw with Tottenham, you know, they took the first opportunity to go all the way around the world to, you know, to play Newcastle. You know, when the only people who gave two hoots about that were the people in Australia. Anyone else couldn't have given a monkeys about it. And it was just a basic friendly. So you're sort of looking at these things and thinking to yourself, you know, because the other thing as well, but, you know, how are they going to factor in season ticket holders, people who pay the hard-earned money to then turn around and say, oh, okay, we appreciate you're paying these thousands of pounds this ticket, but this 1 or 2 or 3 games you can't go to. Okay, well, how does that work? You know, it just doesn't work. So, no, and I think it's one of those novelties that comes up, you know, from time to time, and we see it. You know, I don't think it has any sort of legs. I think what it is, it's more the American market. If you look at the people that are driving it, it's more you know, John W. Henry or the Glazers or people like that, where there are American owners that think, oh, hang on a minute, you know, you get the NFL over there, but we want to have the Premier League over here. Well, I just don't see it happening. It's not necessary. There's enough money swirling around already in the game. You know, I just don't see how you would, you know, even allow for players to do it or for coaches or things like that. I think player welfare, I think the PFA and others will just get involved and say absolutely no chance. So I think it's a fantasy that's got no leg to stand on at all.
But Joe, we brought the NFA to Tottenham, didn't we?
We did, but then to be fair, that's been done for ages. To be fair, you know, that long before we brought it, and it was going to Wembley. So, you know, we have, and this conversation.
But this is the thing, Jay. Wembley, I can understand, because Wembley is a tourist attraction. Tottenham Hotspur is a football club, and that's where they're getting it so wrong, because they're turning the stadium into a tourist attraction. They're about the thing about building this £40 million hotel. They've got the F1 underneath it. They've got the retractable NFL pitch. You know, it's becoming a tourist attraction, and it's not. It's a football club, and
No, and this is what. But you could, for every, if you look at it, because you're basing it on a Tottenham, on a Liverpool, on an Arsenal, Man United, Chelsea, etc., who yes would jump at that. but there are teams like Ipswich, like Bournemouth, West Ham, who are going to want absolutely nothing to do with that. And the problem is, you see, people aren't going to go all the way to the States, and I think Harry said it, to watch Bournemouth versus West Ham. No disrespect to those clubs. They're not going to want to watch it. They're going to want to watch Liverpool versus Man United, Spurs versus Arsenal, teams like that, where they can really go toe-to-toe with each other. No one is going to give two hoots. And when you look at, because you talk about the NFL, the clubs that come over, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the clubs that have a fan base already here, this to me is where you look at it and you think, ultimately, I don't see that coming of it. America is used to that. They have the NBA come over here, the NFL comes over here. I think, other sports come over here. We don't do that. We don't go elsewhere for our for our club competitions. For international, yes, we do, but we don't do that for anything else. And I think the power and the lure of the fans in the Premier League just won't get off the ground. I think the idea, it's something that they like. I think it's in the same bracket as the Super League. It's something they like the idea of because it would make a load of money. But when you actually then put it into practice and you start putting it into it, won't happen.
Yeah,
the fans
it's all money. It's all money driven. The whole lot of it.
It is, yeah, and it shouldn't always be about that. The fans should come first, but this is a crazy idea.
That's not the first time we've seen this. As we saw the Super League, it was only until the fans said no that the Super League crumbled. Otherwise, it would have gone ahead. No problem at all.
But they're such hypocrites. Like you said, Jossie, with player welfare, and then they go and extend. I mean, I don't mind the way the European format looks, but we play more games. That way, if you're in the Europa League, you play more games. Champions League, you play more games. Conference League, more games, whether you like it or not. So the idea of it playing abroad, it's a fantasy by irrelevant nutters that I think that know absolutely nothing about the game. But
Harry, this is the thing. Even in the Europa League and the Champions League, you're going to different countries anyway with away games.
For finals, away games, finals, exactly, yeah. Absolutely. And it's not stopping them. They can come over here, or there's merchandise over there.
Exactly.
I believe in a worldwide audience. We saw that. We went to Japan, now South Korea. The reception is absolutely fantastic at both. I think it's great, and I don't want to lose that. It doesn't mean that we should be playing in Japan every week, but it might mean that we go there for a pre-season tour. There's a massive difference between playing there weekly, and I just can't see it happening at all. But no, that's fine. I do want to get on one question in the chat. Before I do, Lois, talk to me about your idea, or kind of thinking, should I say, behind this idea.
It's absolute fiction. I mean, I think it's incredibly, it's insulting, I think, to fans in England, because, as you say, if people like Spurs fans pay thousands of pounds for their season ticket, and then they've gone from having 19 Premier League home games to 15 or 14 or 13. And if anything, it makes those games more expensive because you have less games to go to. So more people are going to want to go to the games you can actually see in the UK. And it's going to make the prices even more expensive. It's not fair at all. And I think it's incredibly insulting. And as you said, I doubt people in America are going to get excited by seeing West Ham versus Ipswich. I doubt that's going to get too many people off their feet. I mean, and the thing is, over there, you're not going to get all the atmosphere and stuff you'll get over here. And I think it's incredibly unfair. It depends how they want to structure it. But imagine if they said, all right, Tottenham versus Arsenal, it would be at the Spurs ground, but it's in America. But then Arsenal versus Spurs is still at Emirates. How is that fair? I mean, it depends how they structure it.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense. It's not even there's ideas that I disagree with. There's a lot in the world, in and outside of football, but at least have structure and backbone and common sense to them. This is just a completely crazy idea that there's just no structure, slightest bit thought to it. It's, I don't know, it's like me getting a water bottle and trying to fill it up from the bottom. There's just no thinking behind it. It's going to go everywhere. It's going to be an absolute disaster. It's not required a single cell in the brain of thought. And I think it's crazy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and people actually backing it as well.
People only back it because it'll just making more money for the club.
Yeah.
But that's the only reason. And people who just watch every game from their city or their living room, whatever, obviously it has no effect for them. But then if you go talk to a season ticket holder, someone that's been going to their club for 20 plus years or whatever, and then you tell them, oh, by the way, Tottenham versus West Ham next week, oh, it's in New York City. You tell them that, they will not be happy about that.
No, they don't want to watch Fleetwood versus Northampton either. They probably haven't even heard of them. They wouldn't even know where it was. So yeah, I think
it's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. And the thing is, though, is that when you realise quite a few owners in the Premier League are American, so you can see why they're backing it.
Yeah,
but,
I get that. With someone like Mark Goldbridge, well, I do in the sense of he just is an armchair supporter, and I appreciate it's hard for some people to get to games. I'm not saying that, but when he openly admits to not supported, he chose a random club in Man United. When he sits here and he knows that a lot of people pay for a subscription with his channel, that they won't be able to afford it if they can't get to work. And this idea of playing Premier League games outside of the UK will mean that those people who back Mark Goldbridge will think about it logically. They'll earn less money because they'll be travelling to see their club, or they won't be able to have the enjoyment of football. He loses out from that. And it just really frustrates me.
I think it's just because they've had pre-season friendlies. I think Arsenal, Liverpool, and United are in the USA right now doing a tour, and I think they've seen that on some resellers' websites, the Arsenal versus Liverpool or whatever game is selling for £1,000 a ticket. So they're looking at that and they're licking their lips, and because they're thinking that probably does come over to the Premier League. But I doubt you're going to get one. I doubt you're going to get clubs like Man United, Liverpool wanting to play their derbies.
What are they going to do price-wise?
I don't know. But it's because they've seen the preseason. They've seen the preseason tours and realised how much money they could get from it. But it's zero sense. The only reason it could maybe make sense is a final where it's a neutral venue, but I still should be played in the UK.
I sadly think that, and I think it's sad football's going. I think with VAR, technology's completely taken over the game and sucking it, and the fans are being forgotten. As Casey said as well, that working class kind of feel has completely gone for it, and it feels like it's the one for the lords and people right at the very top. But that's the wrong comment I meant to bring up. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask just a couple of you before we wrap up for today. Casey, I'll ask you. Apologies for my little rant. He hasn't spoken for a while. Would you take Jonathan David, Chiesa, and a left back for 68 million? I'm assuming he means all three for 68 million instead of Eberechi, Eze. So what do you think about that? It's an interesting question.
I wouldn't, because that's just like Travis will like me saying this. That's a Daniel Levy move right there. Going for the lower, less option. It's so annoying. I saw. I think today was like the anniversary of a player that we brought in way before my time. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. And I saw someone say something saying that was the last time we brought in a player that's at world class level or a very high level. We have never done that as a club. Like in my lifetime, I don't remember the last time we brought in a player that was at that world class level or that high tier level. I'm not saying Eze is world class. Obviously, I'm just saying he is definitely one of the better players in the Premier League. And obviously, he brought that to the international level as well. So you can definitely do that step up. And that's the type of signings that you make to advance your team. Jonathan David, Chiesa, and a left back isn't that. Sure, they'll be good. Sure, they'll do the job. But we've been a club that keeps doing that. We've been a club for so many years that they'll do the job. Why can't we be that club that goes all out on the Eze and improves the starting 11 and starting that those three is more like improving the squad, but I'd rather improve the starting 11. And I think the type of player that Eze is, he's a rare profile in today's game, and I think he'll just bring us to that next level.
Okay, fair enough. Justin, I'll choose you as the second member to answer this.
I would. I'd take all three 100% because I think, particularly with what we want to be trying to achieve, we had squad depth, a striker, and obviously the left back. Obviously we'll have to wait and see what happens with Donnelly. But to me, I look at Eze, and yes, I'd love to have him at Spurs, no question about it. But I just feel the other three are more practical for what Tottenham need. To be able to go big this season, because that's the one thing I think we've struggled with is we've just not had enough of that top class quality to be able to bring on in games, especially as we're going to have more games. So for me, I'd take all three of those all day long.
Okay, fair enough. I think that kind of wraps us up nicely for today. So thank you to the panel. Thank you everyone for your questions, your contributions. A lot of you have listened I've just seen, so that's over 170 of you by the time we finish. So thank you very much to each and every single individual. That seems to get bigger every week. So no, we do really appreciate that. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It's free to do so, and it helps the channel grow. Even if you're not going to watch much of the content, smashing that subscribe button. Even if you don't come back, we'd love you to. But if you don't, that will be massively appreciated for England, Premier League, and Tottenham content. Casey, thank you very much for coming on. I'd love to get you back on. When you sort of the audio issues, where can people find you?
You can search up C Smith on TikTok. That's where my larger audience is, and that's where I'm more likely. I don't use Twitter too much, but you can obviously go follow Twitter. That would be nice. I would like to gain more followers, and I would try to fix the audio issues in a later episode.
No worries. Thank you very much for coming on. Travis, regular on the show, Daniel Levy and Eric Dyer, enthusiast. Where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant to be back on the show tonight, Harry. Another wonderful panel.
Deny it.
There's nothing to deny. Absolutely wonderful panel as always. Obviously talking all things Tottenham, and sometimes Eric Dyer when it does slip up. You can find me on
every
Twitter.
week.
Every week, yeah. You can find me at Official Caster on Twitter. I am also on Instagram. It would be nice to get a few more Spurs fans on my Twitter page. So that's my two platforms. I am on TikTok, but I'm warming up to that. Nice.
I have to go check that out. You have to tell me after. I'll go drop it a follow. Justin, another regular on the show. Thank you very much for coming on. Obviously, it has been a while. But it was great to have you on today. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so generally a little bit like Travis, as either here or on Twitter. I tend to sort of put most of things on there. I haven't gotten into the 21st century yet in terms of TikTok. So maybe at some point I'll
go on.
I'll start to go young and give it a go. But at the moment it'll be here or Twitter. So again, thank you so much for having us on.
No, thank you. We're going to struggle, aren't we, for the next 3 weeks, Justin, with no McLaren and F1 either. It's got to wait till the Spurs season gets underway. I mean, I don't like the summer break either. Let's get them back both underway. It's harder when there's no Euros or World Cup. That period just seems to drag. It feels like a lifetime. But thank you very much for coming on once again. Lois, admin at the Scarfe Facebook page, a very valuable member. Thank you very much for coming on. Where can people find you across social media? If you unmute yourself.
Sorry, I apologise. You can't even see me anyway. But I'm only just use Twitter or X, whatever you tend to use it. Romero 17 season on there. I do some stuff on there. But I mean, I don't really use any social media other than that because I don't know why really. But I just don't know why. Don't use TikTok. That's rubbish to be honest. But
fair enough.
But other than that, I'm on Scarfe. Of course, as you said, I'm the admin of Scarfe Spurs Talk, so I'm on there a lot. I obviously give updates to fans. I do a lot of admin work, which I've really enjoyed. So I'll give that a follow, and obviously we'll be keeping you up to date on those Spurs stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to all of you. Have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're listening and watching. And a massive up the Spurs.
You were working as a manager at Celtic Park when we met you. We picked you out, you shook us up and turned us around. You've turned us into something new. Ange Postecoglou, you know that we believe it when you say you're gonna change it. Ange Postecoglou, we're the mighty Tottenham and nobody's gonna stop them. Oh, we look so fine in blue and lily white. And then he said to me, I'm from a land down under. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. car glue, oh, pasta car glue, baby. Pasta car glue.